Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your support. Another video. Told you relentless nonstop. Uh, got my son here with me today. I'm gonna start off with a verse. Proverbs chapter 17, verse 6. Children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers. I'm not gonna be too serious. It's the weekend. I actually wanted to talk about sports a little bit today. Um, I told you my favorite sport is basketball. I got the little, the bullets. You can't really see it, but it's the Chris Webber joint on. Um, yo, I've said many times that, a lot of these athletes in this era, like a lot of them have daddy issues. A lot of them, you know, especially, the one that they try to talk about a lot, LeBron, you know, the reason why he disrespects previous eras of basketball. We done with the '90s and how they just try to talk about they can't downplay Jordan's record, so they try to downplay his era, not knowing it was great players in all these eras. And if it wasn't for Mike and the things he did in his era and the guys in the previous era, these guys wouldn't be making the money they making today. Like straight up. Like I said, it's the whole lack of respect. These are things that I tell my son, like, that's the most important thing to me. Like, not to glorify myself or anything like that, but one of the things I know you can't see because it's in old English, but on my arm it says respect is earned. And that's one thing as men in particular, we have to earn that. Why I'm a supporter of certain athletes and guys who put in the work. What's your mouth, man? But to me, it's just the lack. Like I said, it's the lack of respect that really irks me with the modern day athlete. You know what I mean? Like I said, my favorite sport is basketball. So I'm gonna touch on that in particular. Like I'll go back to like the previous eras. Like if I'll put it to you like this: in the modern era, like a lot of these athletes say, "Oh, they're bigger, faster, stronger, and all that stuff." These dudes are as fragile as eggs. Like Bama's played 3 games to tear their Achilles. You seen that in the playoffs, this past season. Dudes tearing ACLs just by doing jumping jacks. You know what I mean? Like it's wild, man. And like I said, the lack of respect. Like I noticed when Jordan was playing, and people started, talking about, this that dude might be the best era ever. He didn't disrespect the previous eras. He didn't disrespect the previous generations. Kobe, when he got to that point, Kobe always paid homage to, the previous generations. But you get to this current era with LeBron, and every time it's like to make this dude look better, we got to tear down the previous eras. We gotta make these eras, seem minuscule or irrelevant, to try to big us up. But if y'all Bamas were so great, why are the ratings low? The ratings in this era are like the lowest ever. They're the lowest ever, for this era. So I'm showing my camera out. Like they're the lowest ever. But these dudes are so great. This crap is boring, man. Everybody is no creativity. Bunch of copycats. Everybody running half court, shooting threes. Everybody got to face up. Take everybody. Everybody got to play the same. No matter if you 6'1" or 7'3", like everybody got to play the same. You know what I mean? Like everybody got to step up. Do the little, the crossover move and take guys off the dribble. Don't nobody know how to play with their back to the basket. It was funny. I'm about to take my son to the basketball court after I'm done with this video. So on a serious note, like I said, I wanted to talk about like it's important for us as fathers, spending time with our children, not just doing stuff like I said, you buy your kids this and get your kids that, but you're not spending any quality time with them. You know, that's the thing. These are the things that your children remember. This is why I said daddy issues. You know, the guy that they glorify now, you know, LeBron, I'm not trying to tear him down. It's not personal. This is strictly from a sports standpoint, from a basketball standpoint, because I do respect the fact that he's trying to be there for his kids. You know, he appears to be a faithful husband to his wife. I say appears to be. You know, I don't know, but it appears to be. I'm not here to judge. So I'm just strictly speaking from a sports standpoint. You know that. Sorry, my phone notifications are going off. Give me for that. But I hope you guys are watching because, like I said, I'm about to go in. I'm about to go in like crap today, man. Because, like I said, this era is like there's a bunch of little disrespectful little punks, like straight up. And I say all the time, I tell my son, I say every time people try to, you know, from the previous generation try to chime in and you know give their input on certain things. Oh man, they just some hateful old heads and all this other stuff. Like, yeah. Like, you ever heard of advice? You ever heard of constructive criticism? Because obviously they have it. How you gonna learn? You think you got all the answers? You Bama's turn 25 years old and you know everything. You don't. You don't. They say scientifically, like physically, you're at your physical prime, you know, when you're in your mid-20s, mid-late 20s to your early 30s. But your brain is continuing to grow. Your brain is continuing to develop. So you're in your mental prime, actually, when you're in your late 30s, early 40s. That's when your brain peaks out. That's why you see older players, their IQ of the game, it becomes great as far as like their skill set and their moves and stuff like that. That's why, you know, Jordan was still effective when he was on the Wizards. It's like, I'm not going to outrun or I'm not going to out-jump you, but I know I can get to this spot. I can do these little up and unders and stuff like that. I can get him with the pump fake, draw the foul, get him with the three-point play. You know, and a lot of people forget that aspect, like as far as the fundamentals of the game. Everybody, like I said, everybody want to play the same way. These Bama's young. They are traveling left and right. These dudes in this era, they getting away with traveling. Like, I'm trying to figure out since when you can cross somebody up, pick up your dribble. You know what I'm saying? Do 2 step backs after your dribble's been picked up and take a shot and not be called for traveling. Like, where they do that at? I'm trying to figure that out. Like when they start doing that, because like I told you in the previous era, in the previous video, I'm sorry, like in the '60s, Wilt Chamberlain, when he was playing and stuff, when I was talking about my top 5 players, and I was like, Wilt, like they actually we talk about hand checking in the '80s and the '90s, like they could do double hand checking in the '60s, double hand checking. You know, and as far as like the pace and the speed of the game, like the fastest pace and speed of the game was actually in the '60s. They act like it's now, it's not. You know, it was actually in the '60s. You know, and you know, the reason why I mentioned about Mike, you know, why I got him number 1. Like I said, number 1 is transcended the game. To this day, when someone is excellent in their sport or great in their sport, they always say, oh, so-and-so is the Michael Jordan of their sport. Like with Tom Brady when he was doing what he's doing. Oh, he's right up there with his name to this day still comes up. So for me, he's the measuring stick. So ironically, when I want to do like my top 5 or top 10, I got Mike like unranked. So I almost want to put like Kobe number 1. Because Mike is like at a different echelon. He's the measuring stick, you know, as far as like excellence. You know, and like I said, that transcends sports. And y'all sit there and y'all want to compare this fool from Akron. This what I call him, the king of excuses. You know, the king of HGH/steroids. You know what I mean? This guy, y'all want to compare him, Mike? Like I said, Mike was must-see TV. I remember that. When I was young, I was a teenager, and like folks who didn't even watch basketball, Like it was, oh, the Bulls are playing, George playing, they was gonna watch the game. They, like I said, they weren't even fans of the sport, but he was must see TV. And what he did for the game, as far as the level of popularity, like excuse me, Iverson said it best in his Hall of Fame speech. He was like, Jordan gave me the vision. You know, Iverson said that. That's why I said your favorite. You know, there was a line I think Jay-Z used to say your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Like I said, your favorite baller's favorite baller. Like that was MJ. Like I said, my favorite hooper is Cole, and you know his favorite hooper was Jordan. You know, there's a reason for that. Like I said, it was a measuring stick of greatness. That's why when they do this fake little flute goat debate, which is disgusting, because I'm like, I remember like going to the barbershop in 2010 when Cole had won his fifth ring. And I remember getting in heated debates. I mean, heated debates, bro. Like folks was yelling, screaming, cursing. And they was, you know, talking about who the best was. And the debate was always between Jordan and Kobe. LeBron's name never came up. He was an afterthought. He was an afterthought. But now all of a sudden, you know, this guy is worthy to be mentioned because he got his clutch sport clients. He got these Bamas, all their tentacles are all in the media. Whether you talk about Brian Windhurst, whether you talk about Shannon Sharp being paid off, because this dude is so insecure that you constantly have to talk about he's the best every day. If you're the best in something, you don't have to say it. Your peers will say it for you. You don't have to say anything. All your peers will say, "Oh yeah, he the one. This the guy. This is my inspiration." You don't have to say anything. Like I said, that's why I always said when I talk about daddy issues, because and there's no disrespect to the mothers out there, because you know we need that love, we need that support. Your mother's your first cheerleader. You know, she's the one that loves you unconditionally. But guess what? Your father loves you unconditionally as well. Like I mentioned many times, it's not God a father. You know, the love for men is different. And, you know, that level of insecurity, that comes from not having a father in your life. Because your mother's not going to give you confidence, not around other men. That level of confidence and being sure of yourself, that comes from having your father in your life. Because that first guy that you want approval from in your life is your father. You know, you get that, you know, as a child, as a son, then, you know, your confidence when you're around other men is going to be top notch. You know, you're not going to doubt yourself because you know what you can. You already got the ultimate guy's approval. I told my son, like, your dad is the one man that is not going to hate on you, that wants the best for you, that literally wants you to be better than him. I always told my son, I don't want him to be as good as me or just like me. Like, nah, I want you to be everything I am. I want you to be a better version of that. I don't want you to make the same mistakes. You know, I'm your biggest support. I'm here to teach you. But these Bammers in this era, they don't know how to take constructive criticism. Everything got to be cheerleading. Oh, you're the greatest. Like I said before, if you're the best on something, you don't. Other people don't have to tell you that. You already know what you're capable of. You know, so you know, like I said, I see in this current era. Forgive me for a second. I'm gonna take a sip. This current era, man, is like these Bammers are so freaking disrespectful. And like I said, the message is born. The reason why I like hoops is because, like I said, everybody had their own skill set. When I was watching back in the '90s, remember we done with the '90s. If it wasn't for the '90s, you Bammers wouldn't be making the money you making nowadays. That was the golden era of basketball. When you building a building, you building anything, you have to have a foundation. It's not just all of a sudden it just magically appears. These Bama's act like, just their skill sets are going to be like, no, you took bits and pieces from other people's games. And I know everybody, oh man, Michael Jordan did that mess. So he did. But he had a competitive fire that was unmatched. So when y'all bring, he took stuff from Dr. J never had the competitive fire that Michael Jordan did. And I'm not trying to disrespect Dr. J. Forgive my son, he got his head down. He's on his little tablet right now. You know what I mean? But he wanted to sit beside me in the video. Like I said, my little man. You know what I mean? I'm about to take him to the court, after this. Get his game right. But like I said, I wanted to touch on sports. A little bit I told you my favorite sport is basketball. And like I said, I be having these debates sometimes at work, with some of my little brothers. I call them my little brothers because some of these dudes is in their 20s, their 30s. I'm in my early, mid-40s. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen a little bit more. I tell them all the time, look, man, I done seen better. I'm sorry. There's no hate to LeBron. I had his jersey. I gave it to my son to show him I don't hate this dude. I had the Zoom generations when he first came out. When he first came in the league, I was like, okay, he wearing the number 23, but he doesn't really play anything like Mike. He's kind of original, you know what I mean? So, and he didn't say much. He was legitimately an unselfish player. I remember watching his first game, and I was like, yo, this dude, in my mind, like, this dude is as athletic as he is. Like, he's passing too much. He needs to be more aggressive, But over time, I saw with the insecurity and with the level of arrogance this dude had and the level of disrespect for the game itself. Michael Jordan, we talk about for the love of the game. He had the love of the game clause, where he could play basketball anywhere, anytime. He actually had that in his contract. Some of these athletes, when they have contracts, with the NBA, they're only allowed to play, so they don't risk injury. They're only allowed to play, when they're in the team facilities and, when they're around, anything to do from their franchise standpoint. They're not really allowed to play when they're, on their own free time, but they got to do it low key. Like when Kevin Durant went to Rucker Park, not Rucker, but he did go to Rucker, but when he went to Barry Farms, like the franchise, they don't really approve that. But Michael Jordan actually had a love of the game clause, in his contract, the way he could play anywhere, anytime. I think that started his second year. After he hurt his foot, he broke his foot. You know what I mean? And he came back in the playoffs and he dropped 63 points on the Celtics. And again, to this day, that record still stands for the playoffs. That 63 points that he dropped when Larry Bird said that wasn't Michael Jordan out there. That was God in basketball shorts, even though I wouldn't go that far. But like I get the point. Like, and this is Larry Bird in his prime. This is the 86 Celtics. They're saying, yo, that wasn't Michael Jordan. That was God out there in basketball shorts. They knew. Like, this dude is different. That's why what's the guy's name, man? The coach the 84 team, he coached Indiana. I can't think of Bobby Knight. And he was telling them, like, when he was trying to give advice to Portland when they had the draft in 84, it was at the 84 Olympics. And I think Olajuwon went number 1 and Sam Bowie went number 2. And he was telling me, he's like, yo, he said, I don't care what you think. He says, like, we need a center. We got Clyde Drexler. We don't. Look, draft Michael Jordan and play him as center. Like, they knew, like, he knew that he's like, yo, you got to have this guy on your franchise. Like, this dude is something different about him. And like I said, not to gas him up. Because when Mike first came to the league, I was not a fan. I like his ability. I'm sorry. I like his ability, but when he started to merge, like in the early 90s, when he went to the finals, I told you, that first finals in 91, I was going for Magic. I saw my whole school, everybody had on Bulls articles, Jordan. I told you, when everybody goes left, I go right. When everybody goes right, I go left. I'm not a follower. I'm a leader. Not to gas myself up. But I was rocking with Magic. I was going for Magic in that first NBA finals. I was not Mike. So when I had these debates at work and we was talking about sports. Oh man, you glazing Mike. Man, I did not like Mike, man. I didn't start rocking with Mike till like 96. You know what I mean? When he came back in '95, and he was wearing the 4-5. You know what I mean? He was playing baseball. You know what I mean? And shame on Kevin Durant with that recent interview. I saw that mess too when he was talking about, man, yeah, you know, sometimes they retire and go play baseball. Yo, his father just got murdered. His father got murdered. People deal with grieving in different ways. That was his way of paying homage and, you know, trying to honor his father. And it was like his way of therapy. It was his therapy. It was therapeutic for him to do that. He had to get away from the game and do that. And plus, like after that, they go, "Oh, he quit." Really? So you quit after you win? He just won 3 championships. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because I remember the narrative when I was younger, like about Mike when he said, "Oh, Mikey, well, LeBron, he plays in the social media era. You know, Jordan never dealt with this level, but he dealt. Oh, trust me, Mike dealt with a level of criticism, man. He did. He dealt with a major level of criticism. I remember it was like, you know, guys like him, yeah, he's entertaining. You know, he's fun to watch, but you can't build a championship team around him. You need a big man. You need a center. Mike shattered that. He was the first guy where he shattered that. Was you know what? We don't, you know, we can actually win with this dude. That's why he was crying when he won that first ship. He didn't run. He didn't run when the Pistons was beating him up. He dropping like freaking 60-something points on the Celtics, still losing, even though they game with the double overtime. And the Celtics had like, I believe, like 5-6 Hall of Famers. And that was before Scottie Pippen went to the team. And, you know, he didn't quit. He came back, hit the gym up, you know, started banging them weights, got stronger. You know what I mean? And he said, you know, ain't no quit. I'm going to keep coming. I'm relentless. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to die trying. That's where the respect comes in. You know what I mean? That's where the respect of the game comes in. You know, and the love of the game. You know, so like I said, that's why I got Mike like #1. He's the measuring stick to this day. You know, you can chime in too. You know, you got some thoughts. Feel free to speak on, like, you know, Daddy, you know, speak on this or speak on that. You know, let me know. But I had to speak on, like I said, a lot of these guys in this current era, they got daddy issues. You see them in the draft. It's always their mama. They hugging their mama. Thank you, mama. Bunch of freaking mama's boys. And like I said, again, no disrespect. I don't mean no disrespect. You need both. You need both. But in this country and in this culture, unfortunately, you want to give all the glory to mama. Not knowing it's a lot of fathers out there putting in work. They may make their mistakes. You know, guys like, you know, LeVar Ball, you know, who, for what it's worth, he ain't perfect. He got 2 of his sons in the NBA.
You know that.
What's up?
Who you think is better, Jason Kidd or Steve Nash?
Jason Kidd or Steve Nash? Ooh, overall, I gotta say Jason Kidd.
Why?
Because Jason Kidd brought it on both ends. Jason Kidd is a better defender, and he's a better floor general. I'm not worried about those fluke MVPs. They was going by a team record, you know, but if you look at the numbers, those MVPs should have been Kobe Bryant's. You know, and I know that's the argument.
He only has 1 MVP.
I know. That's the argument some people make when they talk about, oh, Kobe, he only has 1 MVP. And I'm like, yo, knowing he should have had at least 3. At least. You go back and look at the numbers, especially 2006. Oh, my goodness. That was a travesty, man. That was a year he dropped 81 points. Like that whole month, I believe it was the month of February, he averaged like 50 points. Nah, I didn't, but I respected him. That was the first time where I was like, you know what? At this point, you can only compare him to Jordan. I'm talking about Kobe, where he was trying to be like Mike. I said, you know what? It's gotten to a point where you can only compare him to Mike. You can't really compare him to another player. And again, I wasn't a fan of Kobe in the beginning either. Kobe earned my respect. You know, LeBron was reversed. I was actually a fan of his in the beginning. I lost respect for him over time. Like I said, the king of shortcuts, the king of excuses. You know, every time things go bad, he got to bounce. You know, when the Celtics mollywopped him and he bounced in Miami, Dwayne Wade talked about that. He actually, I'm glad he mentioned it, even though he's a disgrace. But he mentioned it where he talked about, you know, after seeing Kobe win that championship in 2010, he like, yo, I only got one. LeBron ain't got none. He was like, yo, this dude got 5 chips. He's like, what we gonna do? They just played with that dude with the Redeem team, 2008. You know, so they don't want to admit it, but they looked up to him. That's why I laugh when they do these videos and they do these what you call it, these documentaries, and they try. Oh yeah, it was a co-leadership with Kobe and LeBron. Please, are you kidding me? LeBron was his little brother, man. There was no co-leader, nothing. LeBron ain't lead nothing. Them Bamas lost the Olympics in 2004 when LeBron was on there. That's what they call them, LeBrons. They lost in 2006 in the Goodwill Games. They got the bronze both those years. It wasn't until 2008 when they got the Black Mamba on that scene where they learned a level of work ethic. They saw Kobe's workout regimen where they thought they was doing something special when they was hitting the gym 6, 7 in the morning. And Kobe was in there at 3 a.m. He was done with his second workout by the time they were starting their first. And it's okay, yeah, he on something different. And they picked up the habits from him. But they knew they couldn't beat him individually. So they had to team up. They had to take these little shortcuts and these little loopholes. And never in history have you seen players in their prime do that. It was an unwritten rule in the NBA. Like, oh man, I know in the 90s, man, remember when Barkley went to the Rockets and, we seen it with Olajuwon and Drexler? It was an unwritten rule that, you're in your prime, you're trying to lead your franchise, and you were unsuccessful, that, you older, you realize you don't want only got like maybe 2 or 3 years left in this. That okay, now maybe I could team up with some people. Maybe we could do this on some last hurrah stuff because there wasn't nobody in their prime anymore. The team up in your prime, that's like a whole different level of taking a shortcut. I don't respect that. I don't. Remember, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 finals losses. The same number that Mike won, 6-0. I tell my son all the time, you cannot lose more than you win and be considered the best at anything. You can't. How you gonna lose more than you win? You 4-6. And you the best? That's the measuring stick? Why ain't nobody saying, oh, such and such is the LeBron James of their sport? To this day, if someone's great, they say they're the Michael Jordan of their sport. To this day, 2025. I'm just saying, let's keep it 100, man. Let's keep it 100. These dudes, they're built different. They really are. Like I said, the king of excuses. That's your hero. And it's a shame because the modern NBA has talent. You got guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And you ask some of these dudes, and that's what's funny. When you talk to most of the players, they tell you, number one, who these guys got. A lot of these youngins that's playing now, they ain't see Mike. But they guys in number one? They got Kobe. The guy that just won Oklahoma City Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His number one player is Kobe. It ain't LeBron. You got talent like Tyrese Halliburton. You got guys like Jason Tatum, who they basically blackballed in the Olympics because he played the same position as LeBron. And they knew it would mess up LeBron's numbers. They didn't even play him. Even though the Celtics just won the NBA Finals the previous year. Just straight disrespect, man. All to appease this insecure dude's ego. Because his daddy wasn't in his life. The reason why Mike acted the way he acted, the reason why Kobe acted the way he acted, because they had their fathers in their lives. They had that level of confidence, man. That confidence when you're around men, yeah, you got to spend time with your dad to be sure of yourself, all this stuff. That's where it comes from. You can't get that from mama. Mama can help you out too. Mama can give you insight and advice on what to look for in women, the things to look out for, the things to look for. But as far as men, that comes from your father. That's why I started off Proverbs chapter 17, verse 6. Again, this ain't my opinion, it's in the scriptures. It says, children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers. So my brothers out there that's raising kids out here, remember that your time with them is vital. It's important. You can give them all the gifts you want. You know, you give them whatever they want. If you don't spend time with them, you don't talk to them, they're never going to get those tools to survive. How to interact with others, how to have that level of confidence. These are the things that money can't buy. Like I said, I can go on and on, but, you know, I plan on, you know, I'm taking my son out doing some things with him today, but I said, let me do this video. You know, don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Hopefully this inspires, you know, hopefully this motivates, you know, others to, you okay? Okay. Hopefully this motivates, you know, others to do better and to do what's right, because these are the things they don't show on TV. They want to show our community as a bunch of single mothers. Act like the fathers are a bunch of deadbeats. They don't want to talk about, you know, the things that's because, you know, men, we don't toot our horns. If you're a man, you're just going to do what you need to do. To God be the glory. It's not about my glory. And again, when I go to sports, that's why I say in general, when you're the best of something, you don't have to say it. Your peers will say it for you. They'll say, yeah, this dude, he's the one out there that inspired me. You know, he's the one that, you know, that should be the measuring stick for this. I took these tools for them and them, you know. For the ones that, you know, didn't, in the words of, because I'm inspired by other people, man. I was watching a good video about a dude. He's a comedian, but he's a brilliant brother, this dude named Will Miller. Check him out, check his page out. He was kicking some facts today, man. But yeah, these new level, I'm gonna take a run because Will Miller came up with, you know, it's kind of, you know, it's a New York terminology, East Coast terminology. I got family up in New York too, but I first heard it when Will Miller said it. For these Bammers out here, you know, that sit there and say we done with the 90s, that, you know, they got daddy issues, that got all this level of disrespect for the past. Yeah, pack you ninjas up. Pack all y'all Bammers up, y'all. Y'all some chumps. Some feminine energy, women worshiping Bammers. You ain't men. I don't care how broad you get in the gym. I don't care how big your beard is. You a chump. That you overcompensating for something that's lacking. And real men can see right through it. What Scarface said, the eyes Chico, they never lie. The eyes Chico, they never lie. You could look a man in his eyes and see what he's made of. It's the same thing with the level of competition in sports. Again, I thank you all for your time. You know, like I said, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'm probably going to do another video later on today because it's so early from a more serious standpoint. But I'm going to do more sports videos too. I just wanted to touch on that. But, you know, my son, you see, he's sitting there getting bored. The kid's attention span. I'm about to take him to the basketball court. You know, I'm about to play some football with him, you know, probably do some other things. You know what I mean? Daddy duty. Like I said, daddy issues. These Bammers out here, y'all got some daddy issues, man. Y'all don't want to admit it. But that's where it stems from. All that level of disrespect for the past and the peers, because it's never with the women. It's always disrespect towards men. Yeah, y'all got daddy issues. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line because Mark Machiavelli Miles said so.